All right, we are back. Welcome on back, folks, here this Tuesday morning, shortly after 11 o'clock Eastern, as always, here for our Traders Talk workshop. Great to have all of our students and members alike. Might I say the date, February 6th. That is great to see. Mark, Kathleen, Jeff, Peter, Margaret, Rich, Chris, got Chuck, Brian, Lawrence. If I didn't shout you out, my apologies. We got a full house here live inside our trading room. Great to see all of us there. And perhaps all of us back on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works. If you're just joining us for the first time live here, at Cyber Trading U is just our handle on YouTube. So always look to follow and hit the subscribe button right away. If you're just joining us on YouTube, just right there on the bottom left. Quick shout out, by the way, Henry. Great to have you here at Henry on YouTube. So without further ado, let's hop right into the thick of things. Here in Traders Talk, we have a great chance to break down the X's and O's, really why a stock made the exact move that it made. So really quick, if I may. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Whoops, pardon me there. Butler Bulldog logo. My apologies. Totally didn't mean to do that. Got a big game tonight, by the way. Actually, of course, I meant to do that. So with that said, of course, I had asked everyone just before I pressed record to begin this workshop, students like Chris, Peter, Jeff, Margaret, Rich, etc., inside our room. Hey, what stock were you most interested in trading for the market open session? What that means, folks, by the way, is like, when you're at your desk at 8:30 Eastern, 9 o'clock Eastern, when you have 30 minutes to an hour to scan and prep up, figure out where your big icebergs are, what stock piques your interest the most? So an overwhelming amount of us right away, and I knew this going into it, it's kind of a loaded question for myself, but the majority of us, Palantir, PLTR right here. So this stock had been a nice pop from yesterday, took off from earnings. Quarterly earnings ended up making a big pop. And, it's just one inside our trading room that trades millions of shares a day, like tens of millions of shares, like 54 million on average. That's a lot. That's a lot of volume. And we look for that. This stock has a penny spread. It has big orders at every price here on this program on the far right. That's what we look for. Not only that, but it's not too expensive. So really, pretty much since its inception, off its IPO back in like late 2020, we were following this trade. This stock had such a high float and so many outstanding shares listed off its IPO. It really threw me for a loop because, I was never familiar with the company. They're more of a tech and security based company. And I'm sure there's way more to it than just that. But it led to a great pop back then. It caught our interest at the time, came back down. And hey, even though it dropped, it's not like we took a rise off it for that reason. But it's simply like the cheaper a stock gets, the less it could move, the less it could provide that opportunity. So over time in 22 and beginning of 23, we didn't really focus too much on it over time, but we started to again as it pushed back up. And obviously, as we knew with earnings season this past week and really even the week before, we knew that this would be on deck. And this morning, we knew that we'd be trading it. So did we know that it would be making the exact move that it had made today? Of course not. That's where we have to take the time and figure out where these levels are. So for the 71% of us that wrote PLTR to that question I'd asked, what stock were you most interested in trading? My question to you is, did you take the time to figure out where the levels were? This is what we preach each and every week here in Traders Talk and mainly and throughout our curriculum, phases 1, 2, and 3. So, otherwise we'll run through the same X's and O's on this as we always do. But it's going to be pretty much synonymous with what we always go through, right? It's always the same kind of core concepts that lead a stock to make a big move once we see a big level get broken through. So let's actually just kind of skip ahead here. I'm just going to show you my chart. I wanted to show you the naked chart to begin, just makes it easy on the eyes, right? Stock ended up taking off shortly after the open, ran up towards basically here, then came back down. Easy to say that. I took the time to plot specific levels prior to the market opening. Now, this might look like a lot. So, of course, we teach this all throughout our main classes. And, just mainly here, let me ask Jeff and Brian and Mark, Kathleen, longtime students. If I skipped over you, my apologies. I'm just asking our longtime students of CTU, where are we most often to find these iceberg levels? I'm looking at level 3 and eventually level 4. Where are we most likely to find these key iceberg levels? If there's one assumption we can make with trading, what could that be? Sam and Mark right away saying it, 50 cent levels, whole numbers. Absolutely. Notice the blue lines, the thicker blue lines, 19, 20, 21. And I didn't plot it, but obviously the more stock pumps up, then you'll just plot the next one ahead, 22, right? So right away, those are just kind of my key levels to start with. This is actually a level. I will replot. I did not actually have that there, at least if anything, prior to the opening bell. So that kind of came in later on. But hey, at least for the time being in pre-market, look what happened here. It was holding underneath this thicker blue line, a whole number level, $20, whole number. And it's not just a whole number. That's like a decade level. That's more of like a psychological level where, smart money would trade around and dumb money would trade at, meaning that it's just a very common sense number to focus on, like 5, 10, 15, 20. You wouldn't focus on a price, let's say like $20.37. Just we'll kind of look at this to begin because, hey, at first in pre-market, you could see it held underneath it here at 8 o'clock. Shortly after, it was just generally holding under it. And if we go back, even in after hours trading, this is really where this trade started from in the pre-market this morning. But in the after hours yesterday, look what happened here. Perfect hold under resistance. And then, of course, it broke it, but it made a false breakout, pop and drop. And with that, a bunch of buying came in. I want to go further into this action in just a moment, but just for make it easy, you could see just a pretty big spike of volume, a lot of green, and green we nickname as buying. So there clearly was some good buying interest at $20 here. Just being a member in our room, that's something that you should anticipate with looking at that. Well, even early in the morning here, which I didn't even factor in, but it just goes to show even more. Hey, by the time the pre-market opened up at 4 a.m., PLTR ended up spiking over 20 a couple times. Did it run off of it? No. There's like no one real that's like trading at 4 in the morning, folks. So, it pulled back down and it held back under the level. That is until shortly after 8 a.m. So this trade started for myself and students like Chris and Kathleen and others in our trading room when it ended up breaking back over 20. It re-broke resistance off of 20. And to go further into the after hours move that I just kind of poked at there, let's break open level 4. I have the NASDAQ bookviewer open, so we'll show kind of real time what's going on. But let's actually put this under a real big microscope. This is a great case study, and this is honestly stuff I'd normally have time to do in like phase 2 class, but I'm kind of jumping right ahead here. So looking at level 4, I want to show you this briefly because on Bookmap on level 4, look at this number here under the column CVP. I know there's a lot to look at here. Just try and keep your eyes hyper focused on this column. Go down and look at where my cursor is. Right there. That number where my cursor is, that is just over 600,000 shares. So when this ended up testing and breaking over $20, there is at least 600,000 shares of pure buying at that price. Let me ask us, folks, is that a lot or is that a little? You know what I mean? Is that a lot of volume or is that a little amount of volume in your eyes? Because by the time we saw this at 8 o'clock in the morning, there was another 228,000+ shares that were out there at 20. So, that's just even more fuel to the fire with, hey, what happens if this level keeps getting nipped at and broken through, punched at? The more it gets weakened, eventually it's going to snap and fully break. So it led to a pretty clean break over 20 from there. Pardon me. Ended up pushing up easily. You could see up towards resistance that we had here at the time. Pretty much these two lines here, at least prior to the open. I ended up taking my trade out. It was at $20.21 or $20.20. It was just as it was pushing up here prior to the morning meeting. Fausto is just out today and tomorrow. He'll be back Thursday. But, I had to do the morning meeting at 9 o'clock. And truth be told, hey, I'm no robot. I'm a human. I carry emotion, and I don't want to be looking away from my trade when this is moving up or down. So I ended up taking the money and running, where I thought, maybe there's a case for this to try and directly hit resistance here, like perfect move. Well, in hindsight, it actually did that. You still want to be intelligent with how you're managing your positions, in the sense of, if I'm looking away from this trade, if I'm, doing something else, In this case, at 9 o'clock, I was doing the morning meeting, live stream for about like 30, 40 of us on YouTube, about 120 of us inside our live trading room. I don't want to look like a dodo and have this drop off as I'm still in the move, right? So you take the money and run. With that, well, it did drop off. And then from there, at least it recovered and made the test of resistance. So you ended up getting what you wanted ultimately from the 20 level in pre-market. We still say at least, take the money and run by 9:15, 9:10, 9:15 Eastern time. The logic behind that, my logic too behind that is you want to allow the stock a chance to breathe and relax prior to the market open. This is crazy stock coming off earnings here. So there's going to be much more volume coming into the market here coming up. And although it's tradable and we want you to focus on this stock as a student, so I was very happy to see the 71% right back that they were looking at this trade. It's just you want the stock to have a chance to breathe and relax. And you know what else? This is what I also say. You also want yourself a chance to breathe and relax. Little water break here, right? So figure out where your levels are otherwise. If there were other prices to focus on using level 3 here or level 4 otherwise. So with that, at least, I already took the time to set these levels prior to 9 o'clock and I was good to go. But then, well, hey, market opens 9:30. This shakes around quite a bit. How do you trade this? What was the move? Well, again, there's just one or two things we need to talk about here. At 9:30, folks, there are primarily two things that I'm doing. One is extremely generic. We teach it just in phase 1, right? Like, at 9:30, generally speaking, what's the first thing that I'm saying on the microphone for all of our students? Ding, ding, ding. And then you see Josh come on the microphone. Hey, guys, how's it going? Good morning. Yep. Bill and Brian and Mark saying right there, wait the first 3 to 5 minutes. And certainly, the further side of that range, right? John says you say good morning. That's true. Yes, I start off with good morning. And then I say wait the first 3 to 5 minutes, right? So we are waiting even from there. Well, in that time, this is more towards like the intermediate class I teach, phase 2. In that 3 to 5 minutes, what am I doing really? I'm waiting, obviously, but, is there something I'm looking for? Is there something I'm plotting on my chart? Is there something I should be identifying? Sam says closing and opening prints, big icebergs and VWAP. Let me tell you what, all of that, aside from one, you should have already done. Should have already figured that out 30 minutes ago. That's why these lines are here. But there's one thing Sam said there that pops up at 9:30. John just wrote it as well. You check the opening print right at 9:30. When the market opens up, you tend to see where the big transaction pops up on time and sales, like the tape actually. Well, here's bookmap level 4, makes it pretty easy for me to just show you this. But right at 9:30 this morning, when the market opened, or shortly after really, this big green dot, that actually represents over 5 million shares that got filled at the price $20.40. Over 5 million shares. So we were just talking about 600 plus thousand shares at $20, like from yesterday. Like that's huge. Well, of course that's huge. That's still enormous. I mean, even here when the market opened up, well, hey, at 21, there was more volume that joined the sell side there. In total, 443,000 shares. That's huge. That's freaking enormous. Well, if all of those are so big and enormous, then exactly how big and enormous is this thing, right? 5.3 million shares. So that this is going to be kind of like the grand salami here as far as resistance goes. If it could pop above that, and it does coincide pretty well with the pre-market resistance we had here, like right before the open. It's another like 10 cents above it. So, just with the sheer size of it, that's just really your big top to work off of. At first, though, this ends up pulling back down, and really the first entry that you get off of this, the first entry that you could have gotten off of this actually was like here at like 1978 or so. This was a tiny little pre-market level. I didn't plot that. You could see I didn't have a line there. But in hindsight, if you really want to play Captain Hindsight here, it comes down there and goes under and over and makes actually the first move off that. I got in off 20. And I know that most of our students got in off of the 20 level, at least later on. So really quick, who here, I know I'd asked earlier, but it's kind of hard for me to go back in the chat here at this point. Who here traded the PLTR this morning directly off the $20 level? If you got in off of 20 or maybe 10 pennies above it, let me know. Chris, 2011, there you go. Lee. Of course, there are other entries. You could have gotten in off the 2040, right? I'm just asking it first because, hey, we've been calling it out from pre-market. The playbook was given. As long as you know where to identify these levels, and as long as you give yourself the time to do it all, you can't do it at 9:25 Eastern time. You can't do it with 5 minutes to go. It's like trying to study for a whole exam and giving yourself 5 minutes, right? So with that, hey, Lawrence got in under 20. There you go, man. He got in 1994. It was a good year. With that, though, with all of the buying that came in off of 20 here, and then also the 600 plus thousand, right? Remember from the after hours. Let's count that. Let's factor that in. We saw a ton of buying that came in off that 20 level from the after hours the night before when it first popped. So the more buying that we see, then you'd like to figure that there's a case that not only should resistance pop and break, but hey, I know all of us here know this, so just be quick with the answer. I got to go through my motions. But when a stock breaks above resistance and it runs off of it, we would like to think that resistance would initially become what? Right? Support. So, of course, I'm looking for support here at this point. It was already above 20, and by the time the market opens, granted, it could keep dropping. So it's not like here in the first minute or two that I'm trying this. I'm waiting the first 3 to 5 minutes. I guess if you want to go into a separate conversation, so since it's easy to see this afterwards, are there moves that take off within the first 3 to 5 minutes that I don't have the chance to jump in on? Of course, 100%. This is like the rule I'm the biggest stickler towards. So I tend to break rules on a rarity. I actually am a pretty big stickler to begin with. But this is like number one to me, or number two, actually. This is technically number two. Number one, as far as my rules go, is like don't turn a day trade into an overnighter. But simply here, yes, I am waiting the first 3 to 5 minutes because we always wait the first 3 to 5 minutes. And if stocks pop without us in the first 3 to 5 minutes, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. So you actually could have gotten in off the 2040 level, even as it pushed up more. That's easy to say. But with how strong that was ultimately, hey, if this failed to break above this resistance and then it snapped back, then I'm probably taking a smaller profit. Then we got to realize like, oh, shoot, maybe we're not going to see as much bullish momentum after 9:30. Maybe we'll see more people short the stock at that point. But otherwise, hey, with 5.3 million shares, this is like the grand salami, as I just nicknamed it before. Broke right above it, like a knife through hot butter, right? Or a hot knife through butter, how you phrase it. What led to a big move. Let's see where it's at now, because, well, it didn't exactly kiss it or touch it, but you can clearly see, at least initially, it held above it. It hovered above it here. And there's still a case to see it pull back into this volume and test it as support heading into the early afternoon, really. So, I like this stock. It's a great trade throughout the day. I ended up getting out on my first position on this. It was pretty much right at 20.87 and then the second half at 21. This pushed up a lot higher without me later on. I did try one short on this. I went over and under on 21. I did think that we'd get this test of support. So I tried it from here at first. I went on a half size position and I was in from like basically 2098, 2097. As soon as it popped up higher here, I got out. It was a very small loss. You don't want to go counter trend. That's where, simply put, obviously you can if you want, but look what happened afterwards. There was just a lot more meat off the bone, or to be taken off the bone, going upward, right? Now, this ended up making a drop off here. My man Lawrence got a good short on this, but maybe he was quicker to the draw with the level than I was. Maybe because I just kind of went off the cusp here and just kind of saw this. So PLTR, I was looking for 22, and I was looking for a short from there, thinking, all right, eventually 10:30 in the morning is like reversal time. Probably see this drop to that support eventually, or maybe from a higher low otherwise. But that's where I wanted this to go to 22, break above it, and then break under it, over and under. Didn't do that. What this ended up doing, though, that I realized more in the moment, and it just dropped too fast without me. Lawrence caught it, though. 52-week high was from November 21st, 52-week high. So that was at 21.85, right? High of the day today. Freaking nailed it right there. 21.85 on the nose. I don't really look at 52-week highs as frequent when it comes to my level prep. So, shoulda, coulda, woulda in that regard. It still just hit it perfectly. It didn't actually break over and under that, but it's just still, well, hey, this ended up touching it very nicely. It goes to show resistance did hold either way, and it led to a pretty strong reaction after. So, simply put, like if you're still in this trade long at this point, then just focus on reversal time around 10:15 to 10:30 ish. But certainly, the more this like fails to make a higher low and you see it drop sharper, just yank the trade out. You could always get back in, right? Hey, it looks like easily enough it ended up pulling back down here. Maybe there could have been a better level even off of 20.50, 50-cent level there, perhaps. That's more from the hip I'm just kind of using, but otherwise there could always be a new trade on this stock given the volatility. This stock is fast moving enough today where it provides a good opportunity for us to just continue to watch it. Now, that doesn't mean for us to continue to trade it just nonstop. It's going to eventually lead to a death by 1,000 paper cuts. So that's where what I'm looking for on this move is to see it either come back down here. I would feel pretty confident with seeing support. And then if it slices right below there by any stretch of the imagination, then probably 20 next. But then otherwise, if it fails to even get down here, if it holds too nice up top here right now and tries to come back up to 21, then we'll see if we can get 21 to flip back into support. It's kind of what I'd be looking at there on this trade right now. All right. Chuck says Mara just broke out. Well, I want to turn to that actually quick. Really quick, though, first. So I'm actually in Mara right now. We're going to go over that trade in just a moment. So, oops, right there, PLTR. So PLTR, let's even use just the good old book viewer here, level 3, because you could still see at $21. It's not 100,000+ shares, but obviously compared to the rest of the other orders out here, it's pretty big. And there's actually 46 cumulative orders that make this up. So with that, 21 is your next resistance level using level 3 here, using the NASDAQ book viewer here. On support side, there isn't really a whole lot that identifies as support. That makes sense because I'm kind of thinking here could be our next level, and maybe we'll see something pop up over time. All right, Mara. Mara pushing up freaking beautifully, Chuck. I love it. All right, so I was hoping that this would happen. I did set my stop break even on this trade. I took half out before where I wrote to you, but I set the stop on the second half of this trade exactly break even. So I know it's easy to say the cookie's crumbling like as perfect as you could have right now on this live trade. This is beautiful from 1692. Now, just a little while ago, though, I did write to us in the chat board, and I was probably going to get to Mara eventually, Chuck. So I appreciate you shouting this out to me. So just before I wrote, I think this was more on the audio commentary. Yeah, it's not in the main chat, I don't think, unfortunately. I didn't type it to you. So this was over the microphone then. On the mic earlier when we were in our trading room, I was telling you, well, I was like, all right, well, if there's going to be a trade, maybe we could see it from 1690. And I wasn't really too confident right away with the level. It's not like that was a 50, 70, 100,000 share iceberg price. But where we look at level 4 here in pre-market, I focus on the dark orange and red lines that stretch across this page, especially the ones that are still here prior to, like 8:30, 9 o'clock, etc. So that's pretty much at 1708, but a little bit bigger, a little bit larger. At 1690, right there, right? Is it the biggest iceberg I've ever seen on Mara? No, because 1640 is actually larger than that. And then even ahead, I think there could have been something up top at like 19,000 there. It is just to say, though, hey, when a stock does pop up and it breaks above what we'll assume to be resistance there, when a stock breaks above resistance, we would like to think initially that resistance can become support. So I was already at a PLTR at this point, I believe, and I think that was even after the short trade that I had. But I'm looking for my next move, right? And for students like Chuck, Pete, certainly Rajan, and other members that are joining us week to week, you'll realize what we're calling out, like more frequent than not. You know, I love Mara. You know that we call out Mara, pretty much day to day. So, we were at the time. It wasn't on our main watch list, but I was saying, all right, well, if it could pop and break out here, maybe we could see resistance flip into support. Okay, well, at least that gave us the entry. It gave us the chance, the shot to try and take this trade under and over. Ended up nipping under it by a penny. That's all I need. A penny is all I need there. And then from there, led to the move. So I took half of this trade out at 1730, just pretty much as we're like finishing up the audio commentary. I saw this begin to break a little trend line I had up here just a moment ago. Like that. There we go. And then I kept the second half. That's it. So easy to say this held, but hey, there are times where it stops me out break even and I'm content. It's designed, it's by plan. So now at this point, since the cookie has crumbled pretty damn nicely here at this stage, where could we assume our next resistance is on Mara for Sam and Chuck and Eric and Ravina and Alan and all of our students here? Where could we assume for our next resistance level to be at? What do we got here, folks? Where could we assume? I got a question from Rajan there in chat, which I'll get to in just a moment. But 1750, that is an assumed level, right? 50-cent level. And hey, even on my TradeStation matrix here, there's like 23 or 25K. There does seem to be, even live right now, from my TradeStation matrix here, about 43K sitting up top there at $17.60. So 50 is certainly the correct answer to the question I asked you. That's the assumed level next. But then when we look deeper into level 3, I'll just show you here full screen. You got 1750. And then you got 1760. 1760, do not discount. It's the combination of them together, it seems, that create resistance. So to me, perhaps I'd be more inclined to take the money and run. If not exactly here at 50, then probably just in between that web of resistance. He's like skinnier compared to 17 and whatnot. All right, cool. So that's basically what I'm looking at right now. Now, I did have a question just in chat here, but I had some emails that came in, and I want to prioritize those. So let me just get to Rajan here in chat, and then everyone else I'll just get through email afterwards. So John asks, Josh, did you share these levels 20, 21, 22? So just, and there's more to the question on that, but just did I share those levels? Those are levels that we just teach in phase 1. That is just numero uno, like as far as introduction to volume class, and otherwise when we introduce the NASDAQ bookviewer in the phase 1 stock course, well, that's like the first rule that we provide is like 50-cent levels, like 1750, 1850, 1950 are going to be pretty big, but even larger than that, whole number prices, 5, 6, 7, 8, obviously here, 20, 21, 22. The way I describe it each and every week here practically is like, and it's kind of a silly joke. It's like a dad joke, so to say. But it's like, the old saying goes, like you get lost in the woods, you look up top, you look to the sky, you see the North Star, you find your way home. When it comes to finding levels and you're lost, you're confused, you don't know what's what, and you don't know where your levels are, just, right away, 50-cent levels, whole numbers. That's your North Star to begin with. That's why when I explained this trade, that was literally that's why when I explained PLTR, that was the first thing that I was focused on there. I showed you the larger blue lines. Those were whole number levels. That's just the first thing that I teach. That's the first thing that I instinctively think about myself when I'm doing this level prep live. But there was more, he says. Did you share the targets with the room before it all happened? Well, the targets is more or less to say, I'm taking each trade level by level, right? Like, kind of think of this like a video game. Really, think of it like as a video game. You're trying to, take the ball, let's say, from one level to the next level. And if you don't have enough momentum to, break over that level, you'll pull back, you'll drop back down. And let's say you do break over that level. Well, you got to keep it stepping, right? And if you don't have enough momentum to carry up to that next level, then over time, you're more likely at least to come back. And if you don't get that momentum, you're going to break lower. So as far as, the targets, I take these level by level. Now, though, with that in mind, that's where I could discuss more like timing of the day. Okay, well, reversal time is roughly, loosely speaking, around 10:15 to 10:30 in the morning, right? So that's also something you need to strongly incorporate. We teach that as well in phase one. And then otherwise, as far as feeling confident holding on to a move, I'll tell you what, my guy Lawrence here in chat right now can definitely be one of the first to tell you, because he just nailed a home run on this PLTR trade. It was actually a short. He actually caught it from that 2180-ish area there. But he normally takes a lot of winning trades that accumulate to it. This one, he held on all the way through, like one shot. So he's been through it. He's been with us for a little while now, and that's something he's still learning to do. He's learning to become more patient on a move, right? So everyone is kind of battling that issue to a different degree. Over time, the more that you're with us, you'll become a little bit more reactant to not just taking a trade, but to incorporating other aspects of what we're focused on in class. How much a stock has moved up already, timing of the day. So again, like, hey, for as much as PLTR did move up on the morning, I was expecting for it to false break from 22. Why? Because, well, eventually this thing's going to pull back. For as much as it moved up and up and up and up, eventually it's going to pull back. They all do. So it typically does at the next major resistance. Here in this one, at least, it didn't touch my next resistance, the 22. It hit the 52-week high and then pulled back. So that is where, hey, even if you do have a target on a trade, ultimately, if there's not enough gas left in the tank to carry up to that price, to that target, you're going in reverse. That's pretty much it. Just really quick, back to Mara here for right now. I'm just plotting quick lines here for right now. I'm not really doing a deep dive, but it looks like 1730-ish. Strong resistance here at the time. Maybe that could be support. It already hit it, actually. That's pretty good. I like that. So, you know what? I will move my stop up on this trade here. I almost just closed my trade out before changing my order type. Jeez. Okay, so I'll give it even a little cushion under that. So I'll just move my stop up at this point now to basically under this to a degree. So. All right, now I have to go through email really quick, folks. As far as Traders Talk goes, I typically go first come, first serve in terms of email. If you have any questions, always send it through via email, and I'll have the chance to answer it here, or otherwise, if there's not enough time, at least I'll write you back via private chat. So, question from Alex. This one came in early this morning, so right away. Now, this one might just be a general question. Alex, if you're here right now, just let me know if it was on a specific stock that you had in mind. You didn't give me one, so I'm assuming it's like a general question, which is perfect. It's good either way. So Alex's question was, let's say there's a support plotted below a big iceberg level. Let's say that you took the time to plot a support level on a chart, and that support level on the chart is right below a big iceberg order. And to emphasize, on level 3 and on level 4, of course, like on Bookmap. So let's say the stock is moving towards that area. Is that an entry that we could entertain, or should we wait to see if the big level is reached? Basically, what Alex is asking here is, let's say there's two levels that are like right near each other. Let's say Alex plots one, and then let's say Alex plots one, and then underneath that level, there is an iceberg that pops up. So Alex wants to know, do you wait for that iceberg level that pops up, or do you prioritize that support level that you plotted? If they're right next to each other, I would typically say, like, and I know it's going to be contrary to like PLTR here actually, but this is where I would simply say, like, let's say if you're looking for a move, primarily you're going to have a safer entry if you see the bigger level get reached first. In this case, this is actually geared towards a short. I know Alex is asking geared towards a long. So even as we kind of come down to this area coming up, I got like 3 different levels now here right next to each other between $20.28 and $20.40. I got 3 levels that are right near each other. Figure that to be like a web of support. So ideally, I would feel most confident with this coming down to pretty much the bottom one and then beginning to move back up over the other 2. So kind of to answer your exact question, I would wait to see the iceberg level that pops up since it's right below the support level that you plotted on the chart. I guess that can kind of make me ask you though, how far away are these 2 levels? Because if it's like 2 cents away from each other, 5 cents away from each other, ball game, right? Good, or game on. But otherwise, if they're like 15 cents away from each other, 20 cents away from each other, well, how expensive is the stock? Is it AMD are we talking? Or is it plug? It's like watching the grass grow. So when you have a lot of tight levels that are right near each other, then that's one thing. But if you have levels that are like pretty far apart, then I wouldn't really use both of those together. I would say there's just target 1, and then if it breaks above that, then you have target 2 afterwards. But like, let's just go back to like MARA and PLTR. These levels are pretty far apart from one another. These levels are closer to each other. So that's where I was saying earlier, maybe the combination of these 2, both of them could act as resistance. So normally what happens more often than not is you'll tend to see it run into the first one. Maybe it doesn't touch the second one, but it runs into the first and then it comes back down. So it's a false breakout. It runs into resistance or part of it and then drops. But, that's just where it's always better to be safe than sorry, right? And this is so out loud. This is actually not to Alex who had asked this question. This is just a very out loud comment. So, we don't want to be in a position where we're gambling, right? And I know that every one of us goes into this without that as the intent. I know that every one of us is not sitting there like, all right, time to play the slot machine again. No, we're trying to make intelligent decisions with our money. I know this, trust me. But let's just think of it that way, because to me, this is very binary. This is very 0 or 1 as far as, are we going to be following all of the rules in terms of, an entry or not? Because yes, you could follow some of the rules, but not all of them. But it doesn't get you what you're really striving for. Because what I'm striving for is not going to be the same on every single trade. This site almost just stopped me out. It almost took me out. Stop is at 24, hit 26. So we're still in this for right now. But it is just to say, though, that on every trade I take, I'm not looking for the exact same result, cents per share wise. Every stock offers me a different amount. Some stocks I trade are damn slow. Some stocks I trade are pretty modest and like in the middle, like this and PLTR. That's why I love these trades, because you can make some good money on it. It's not like it's like watching the grass grow. And then you got like the TENXs of the world, which are like, literally playing the casino. I know that pretty much like 98% of us in our chat board come into this with the intent of not trying to trade stocks like this, because that you're putting yourself in a bad environment, a bad position to make money. But to even think of it in the sense of PLTR and MARA, well, of course, these are 100% tradable, right? We're calling them out. I'm advocating it here. Well, it's still to say we're not just throwing a dart on the wall and we're hoping it lands. We need to make sure that we are as accurate as possible when it comes to the where and then the when. The when is a little bit trickier to determine compared to the where, because the where is more based off of just looking at price levels, looking at icebergs, past history, charting. The where is determined from these levels on the chart. The when is not always so guaranteed. There is a little gray in between the black and white there when it comes to the when. that's where I say, like, the more times the stock nips a level in a shorter concentration, then we're more prone to thinking it can make that better reaction. So even here, like, is it possible this could run off at 21 now? Timing of the day would be a little tricky, but you could look for it. I mean, you'd want to see it maybe go under and over, try and have it hold as support. It's definitely an opportunity. I mean, we had some good buying that came in from 21 at first. And even just before here, we had some to re-begin this journey. So, you just want to see this hold pretty nicely over 21, maybe even the VWAP here now at 2090. You got the VWAP price pretty much right there now. All right, so really quick here. I wanted to go over another question from David. David had sent a question last week. I'd answered it, and I want to, if I have the time, I want to re-answer that again. I think he's here, and he had sent over another email yesterday and with different questions. So I want to answer those to start. So David's questions here are, do you classify stocks based on different steps that they take? Let's say like increments, like, oh, this stock is trading 10-cent increments. This stock is trading 25-cent increments. This stock is trading 50-cent increments. Yes, absolutely. Like, we'll say that in a general sense. And I think David understands this. This is just more an out loud comment, to everyone. But again, like I just told you a moment ago, every stock is different. Every stock will provide you different, chance from one level to the next. Some levels are tighter, knit compared to others on a different stock. So let's say on a more expensive trade like AMD, I'm not using tiny 50-cent levels on AMD. This is just too expensive. It moves too fast. So I would instinctively start with dollar levels. But even there, this stock is even just so expensive and it moves so fast, I would just go $5 prices otherwise. So how about this? When this stock is trading at 166.50 right now, what's our next $5 increment underneath that exact price? What is our next $5 increment underneath the price? 166.50. What do we got here for all of us in the chat? Linda and Sam. Yeah, absolutely. 165, right? So I'm sure there could be an iceberg at 166. We'll actually check out NASDAQ bookviewer right now. But I'm just going to put a line of 65 first. Let's find out. And with this, we'll have to use our trusty filter here, right on level 3, right on the NASDAQ bookviewer. All right, so at first, you got 19 to 20, basically 20,000 shares on the buy side right now at 166. There's about 439 total orders that make that up. Okay, I like that. That's a lot of orders. That's a lot of people. It's like triple the amount or quadruple the amount that we, have at times in our trading room. We normally are at like 120, so it's like 3 to 4 times roughly. Well, let's take a look at what's at 165. 32,000 shares, but there's 1,097 total human beings that make up that order. Think about that. Come on. That's absurd. And then on the flip side of it all, when we look at resistance on the sell side, well, probably not going to find as much with this already driving so much down. I mean, this is already bearish to begin, so you don't need to have a major sell order out there. Well, it looks like there's actually a pretty unique one right here on level 3. It is pretty unique. This is a funky price. 170.30 cents. There's 24,000 shares out there. That's a pretty odd price. You wouldn't normally think that, like, 30-cent price level. But look right above it there, below it, price-wise, whatever. But yes, this isn't as large, 13,000 at 170. That's the next $5 price. That's the next $5 incremental level above where the stock is trading. 13,000 isn't as big. But look at the sheer number of orders that make it up. 114 different people make this up. So I'd say it's basically the combination of these two that make this resistance here together, because for this being a pretty expensive stock, This being 30 cents off is not terribly large. That's not a big difference in between big levels price wise. So it's really the combo of them. But simply put, the stock AMD is so expensive, trading basically $5 levels. You'd figure basically every $5 is an automatic support resistance. And then you confirm with what's ahead on the NASDAQ bookviewer. Something like PLTR coming off earnings today, I didn't focus on the 50-cent levels. I just said more, let's just look at whole numbers. Maybe next week it will trade slower and it will trade in 50-cent levels again. That happens. But coming off a more volatile news event like earnings, you typically should see the stock trade more or wider ranges here over time, wider levels. All right, so let me actually jump back to David's email here because there was actually, I had answered it last week. Please, I would recommend to go back just on the recording of Traders Talk, just because every week we're answering different questions, different stocks, and then also every day we're just on different stocks and different coaching sessions with students. So as a new gold student, I'd recommend to just schedule your coaching one-on-one. I would have my assistant reach out to you just right away and we'll get you on my calendar. But, just right away from David, he had asked from last week, do you trade through the direct access? Do you not have a broker account? So the brokerages that we work with, they are broker platforms. They are brokerages, but they offer a direct access trading platform like together, simultaneous. So TradeStation is exactly that. Thinkorswim via TD Ameritrade is exactly that. Now, my shortcut answer to you last week was if the stock has real-time buy and sell data on level 2 and time and sales, then you got direct access. You got a direct access trading platform. There might be one specific platform called DAT Trader or DA Trader. That's like an old school one. Still available, I guess, but I don't think anyone here otherwise uses it. It might be like maybe 1% of us. I'd probably say like 50% of our students use Thinkorswim actually, not TradeStation even, Thinkorswim. And then from there, like probably next up is TradeStation and maybe like Active Trader Pro from Fidelity. Those are probably the main three. And when I say TradeStation / Schwab, you know what I mean there. All right. Just comment from David here as well. And this is just, as a new student, I want David to realize this, but this is a common thought. I want everyone to realize you're not going to learn this overnight or in 1 week in a trial and then just become a master. And I don't think David thinks that way, but I say that out loud because we have a lot of new members that are not even students yet. You're just a trial member kind of playing around with our room, seeing if this is something that you like. Well, when you become a student, we want you to be entrenched into our classes. Phase 1, phase 2, then phase 3 from there. It's basically beginner, intermediate, advanced. You might have a lot of market experience before joining CTU. If this is your first stab at day trading in and out, looking at level 3, it is a different sport. I respect all experience coming into CTU, but this is a different sport. So we want you to go through our classes, even if you feel like you know the basics, right? Because that's where we teach you the basics of order flow. So, my member wrote to me here, I have not grasped how to interpret the order flow. So that is just something that we take a lot further time, not even here in Traders Talk. This is kind of like a Band-Aid, kind of gives you like a quick little, go-to for a week. But otherwise, in our classes, phase 1, I have a full 60 minutes on NASDAQ bookviewer. Phase 2, I have a full 120 minutes between 2 classes on level 3 and level 4 otherwise. So, it is a learning process. It's not overnight. But that is simply where, at least the more that you're with us, and if you're not overexerting yourself, meaning, of course, if you're following what we tell you to do in class, demo mode, sim mode for a week or 2, then just trade small. Don't trade big shares because you're going to get yourself caught in a rut eventually, which I don't want to happen, but statistics are statistics. It happens. Numbers don't lie. So that's why, there's a higher failure percentage when it comes to trading altogether, especially when it comes to day trading. So please don't even try and trade more than just like 100 shares at first, because you're going to make mistakes and you're going to learn from those mistakes over time, right? And once you learn from them, you'll gain confidence. And once you gain confidence, What works on 100 shares works on 1,000 shares, right? And that's pretty much it. Love this from my guy Mark here in private chat right now. Mark, give you the quick shout out right now, but he just wrote to me like just a second ago. He says, treat it like college, education before compensation. It's true. That's why you hear me say it pretty bluntly. Like, unless if you have like the IRS knocking on your door, unless if you got the mafia, the mob, the MOB knocking on your door, like, you know, like pitch torches, whatever they call them, like, you know, ready to, you know, get you. I think we got time, folks. We got time. That being said, hey, there might be one of us or two of us that are in a tighter situation. So that's not to belittle those in a situation like that. That's to say, hey, if you are in that situation, truth be told, unless if you're extremely disciplined with following strategy, you're likely not going to be able to work it out in a very, 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 very short amount of time, like, you know, just a couple weeks or a month. If you can give it more than a couple weeks or a month, then you're going to be able to learn, and then you're going to gain confidence, and then you're going to be able to really, you know, take things to another level here when it comes to making money. All right, really quick here. I ran out of email, so actually perfectly timed from Farouk and David here following up in chat. So Farouk first, he says, Josh, if you have time, can you explain a ladder? Absolutely. Ladder is more visible on level 4. It can be on level 3. Absolutely can be. But, you know, just go to level 4 here, make this easy on the eyes. I just got stopped out on this trade actually just before. It looks like it crashed. So I took my money, or I took my break even, and I ran. So unfortunately, it didn't end up popping up a little bit higher. I could have taken some money there, but I'm going to try and trade this later on today. This is not the last that you'll see of me on this stock, nor PLTR at least. But the ladder. Let's see if we can get a good one showing up here, Farouk. Oh, it's a nice trade. Rumble right now pushing up pretty nicely. Not really a ladder. I just got to try and wing it here. I thought that there was a decent ladder earlier on a couple of trades, but not really showing as much now. Wow, this MOR stock died off. Maybe yesterday this had a ladder. Not really. Okay, so let's try and use our imagination then. Let's try and use our imagination then. There's not one live I have in front of us here, so let's just think of it. Let's pretend right now, that there is a 100,000 share iceberg order popping up on the buy side at 2080 on PLTR. Let's pretend PLTR instantly pops above 21 then. And as it's holding above 21, let's pretend that 100,000 share iceberg that is at 2080, well, they move their order up. So they begin to pull their order at 2080 and they move it up to 21. And then instantly from there, PLTR pops again and it moves off of that. And then over time, the same process repeats. So this is what Fausto and myself call a ladder. Again, that's something I take a lot further time also in phase 1 to discuss. So that is just with bookmap basics. That's towards the end of the education cycle in the phase 1 course. But I have a full 60 minutes there where I take a lot further time to go into ladders. I show it on bookmap. I wish I was able to right here. I don't have a example off the dome here to give you. From David, follow up at least from here. And then we're going to finish up, folks. Again, we're rounding up here on Traders Talk. So I'm going to jump on a coaching call with one or two of our students here over time. And I'll be back at 2:30 Eastern, at least for all of us on YouTube, Facebook Live, etc. I hope that you had enjoyed. But last one here from David. Do margin accounts limit 3-day trades in 5 days? Margin accounts give you extra buying power. You need to be above a certain threshold if you live in the United States, 25,000 as they call it for the pattern day trade rule. So there's a few of us that I'm coaching one-on-one that are in that situation right now. I know it's not easy, but it's doable. And I need you to realize that. So I could talk to you on the side if you're under that PDT rule. Now, let's say if you're above 25,000, then you're able to make more than 3-day trades in a rolling 5-day window. Margin is different. Margin is like extra leverage or buying power. So it gives you typically 4-to-1 buying power when it comes to margin accounts. Like if you have $25,000 in cash and apply for margin and get approved, then you're given $100,000 in buying power. That doesn't mean you have $100,000 in cash, folks. So, there's a difference between buying power and just straight up cash. But, that's just kind of the difference there. All right. Also, how about this? Stay tuned. Little heads up here, actually. Coming up, I think it's next week. So TBD on the official date and time. But my colleague Rich will be doing a nice little workshop for all of us here because I ended up reshaping the curriculum, the phase 1 stock course for this calendar year. So there's actually a class that we turned into a workshop. And hey, we're going to have Rich do that in the next 1 to 2 weeks, setting up your computer and platform. So, we're going to look to discuss that a little bit further there too. All right. 12 o'clock on the nose here, folks. I got to jump onto a one-on-one coaching call with one of our students here. And then from there, hey, at least collectively, we'll jump back to the chat. We'll see what else is out there, to trade. And then by 2:30, I'll be back on collectively for all of us just on stream and on, in our live trading room, that is. So I hope that you enjoyed all together. Just otherwise, for all of our students first, if you have any other follow-up questions, private chat me. Send me over a quick private chat, at least to me on the side, and I'll be able to work with you. Send me over a quick email. Otherwise, if it's a more detailed question, have a trade journal that you'd like to send over. But otherwise, though, hey, if you're on social media as well, if you're interested in joining us week to week, day to day, scan the QR code on the top left, get you access to a week-long trial inside our live trading room. Join myself, the man himself, Fausto, of course. He'll be back on Thursday this week. And then again, all of our students and members here, just throughout the trading room. It's a big family community, camaraderie, at least otherwise. And of course, as much fun as we like to have, we like to make money. So we'll see what else is out there here heading into the afternoon. I'll catch up with everyone here later on today. Take care.